Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to everyone present today. We are from Critic Group 2, would like to give a presentation on the case study entitled What Pushes Scientists to Lie? The Disturbing but Familiar Story of Haruko Bokata. So, for the credits and comments for the presenting group, the credits, it was very informative and they did highlight on important points. We did agree with their stand because they highlighted on research misconducts and dishonesty. However, we believe that they should improve in terms of their technical issues. We also did notice their lackings in info on credibility of the Guardian and the Icon. They also led discussions on Islamic worldview and also no suggest reflections or applications of the case. For the second group, critic group 1, we like that their presentation was very smooth and also the design was very beautiful. However, we believe that they should improve in terms of the audio, and they also had no reference on certain slides. They were also grammatical and spelling errors. Some info or ideas were unjustified. We also noticed that there was a lack of discussion on Islamic worldview and also applications of the case. In terms of their stand, we do not agree with their stand because we believe that they should not highlight on stem cell research and also they should not address Obokata's case alone.
Okay, first and foremost, to make everyone clear and grasp the idea of today's discussion, I will state the general stand of our group. So our group agreed that we oppose the actions of data falsification and fabrication as well as other research misconduct which have led to misleading of research findings as presented in the case given. We also disagree the action of bias and judgment and the whole blaming situation portrayed towards Haruko Bokata. Okay, before we go deeper into the discussion, I will briefly explain the agenda of the discussion. So basically, we have 5 agendas. So the first agenda is individuals and organizations that involved in this case. It's not about Haruko Obokata only, but the supervisor, the co-authors, the publications, and also the media plays big role in this case. So my teammates are going to explain in details about the one who involved in this case. And the second agenda is worldview of Islam. So in this discussion, we are going to dig deeper and emphasize more on worldview of Islam, how Allah preserved Islam and how Islam provide guidance for Muslim in every kind of situation. And the third agenda is law regarding this issue. And we are going to explain law in Malaysia and also outside from Malaysia. And the fourth agenda is reflections as future biomedical scientists and also as a Muslim. And the last is recommendations to avoid this kind of case from happening again. Okay, the first agenda, individuals and organizations involved in this case. So the main protagonist of this case is Haruko Obokata. I will only briefly explain about what she has done in her research and not in details because the previous group already did a great job in explaining about Haruko Obokata. So basically, in her research, she managed to produce the stem cells. However, Obokata was found guilty of scientific misconduct for falsifying and fabricating the data. And also the Western media plays a big role for creating the chaos. Other than Obokata, there are also organizations and individuals involved in this case, such as the publication, The Guardian, Nature, Japanese media, the supervisors, faculty, and also Sasai, Writing Institute, and also co-authors.
Next, let's take a look at The Guardian. The Guardian is a left-center biased newspaper which was founded in 1821 to promote liberal interests. They often use loaded words, which is wording that attempts to influence the audience to favor liberal causes. Generally, The Guardian is a trustworthy newspaper. However, the information given may require further investigations as opinions were often presented as facts, which can be misleading. Now, for Nature, we have learned from previous presentation that articles have to undergo certain procedures before they can be published. One of the procedure includes peer review process. However, it has become a question as to how the flawed studies pass through the meticulous review process. In addition, despite the misconduct done by Obokata, Nature did not retract the papers until they received agreement from all the authors including Obokata, even though they have the absolute authority to retract them. Moving on to the Japanese media, we could see that their mass attack may have led to Sasai's suicide. This can be observed from the content of his suicide note, where he stated that he was worn out by the unjust bashing in the mass media. The Japanese media have also breached his privacy, where they delve into his personal life, which is totally unethical and unnecessary. Meanwhile, the misconducts that we can observe from Yoshiki Sasai as Obokata's supervisor is his poor supervision. He had failed to verify and validate the data used by Obokata in the articles. Furthermore, his negligence in instructing Obokata to remove unnecessary images in the articles during the proofreading process has caused confusion, which contributes to the scandal.
Okay, next is Riken Center for Developmental Biology, which has issue on escapism and supervision. In psychology, escapism can be defined as desire or behavior to ignore, evade, or avoid reality. A person wants to avoid certain facts in reality which cannot be accepted emotionally, and the person has tendency to succumb to despair. This issue of escapism arises when some complain that Riken made a scapegoat of Obokata in order to contain the crisis. According to Kyodo 2015, the investigation board found inadequate accounting procedures at Riken in the procurement of DNA synthesis products, which are used for gene analysis. From here, we can interpret that Riken Institute and CDB are failed to perceive the research misconduct by Obokata because of the lack of proficient supervision. Consequently, Masatoshi Takechi, a former director at Riken CDB, was given a reprimand and returning 3 months' worth of salary. Next is issue on integrity by the co-authors of the problematic papers. First is Hitoshi Niwa, which his involvement was limited to a few related experiments, and the Riken committee said that Niwa's involvement started too late in the process to warrant censure. Following that, he was given a written disciplinary warning. The second co-author is Teruhiko Wakayama. He supervised Obokata when she first came to Riken in 2011. He left Riken for a position at the University of Yamanashi before the papers were published. According to Siranovsky 2014, Wakayama did not involve in the misconduct but found to carry responsibility for failure to check the data, and Wakayama then wrote a letter of apology. Another person involved is Chief Co-author Charles Bacanti. He is a world-renowned leader in tissue engineering, and from the start of Obokata's experiment, Bacanti claimed that he had been able to create stem cells, including human ones, though he offered no evidence. What he did offer, however, was his own special recipe, which he posted online in mid-March. Unfortunately, that humble post backfired. No one else could get his recipe to work, and the involvement of Bacanti in stem cell research is not favorable, as he was not a stem cell scientist but an anesthesiologist and tissue engineer.
Everyone, so I will be presenting to all of you the 4 first main points of the Islamic perspective in the case. The first one is to reflect the story of Adam alayhi salam. The second one is to see the 3 levels of religion according to the famous Hadith Jibril. The third one is to see the concept of Itqan, Ta'dib as well as Al-Falah. And the last one is about Tazkiyatun al-Nafs. The remaining 2 points will be presented by the other presenter. The first point under the reflective story of Adam alayhi salam is, according to Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 30, Allah has mentioned that He would like to create the human as the successive authority, or known as the Caliph on the earth. And we can see that in Surah At-Tin verse 4, Allah has mentioned that man is actually the best creation, which is given with the intelligence and mind. And if we would like to reflect back with the story of the scientists and Halqa Obokata, we can see that those scientists is given with the intelligence and mind until they can make their own discovery and research. However, those intelligence and mind meant nothing unless if we purify our intention to seek the pleasure from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. The second point is about the satanic temptations. Okay, so we know in the case of Obokata and the other scientists is that they are being tempted with the worldly gain matters such as the recognition as well as the power. And this what make us difference between the non-believers, because we in our daily prayers recite Surah Al-Fatihah verse 6, guide us to the right pathway. And Shaitan already promised promised Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala in Surah Al-Qasas verse 50 that He will make the mankind following His desire without the guidance of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. This shows that the desire of the mankind should be guided by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, Al-Hadi, the absolute guidance. Right, so moving on to the next parts of the presentation is about the 3 levels of religion according to the famous hadith of Jibril, which are Islam, Iman and Ihsan. But I am going to focus only to the Ihsan part, which means to do something excellently as if we can see Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. However, without the Islam and Iman, one cannot achieve the Ihsan. Okay, so Ihsan can be divided into 3 parts, which are Itqan, Al-Falah and Ta'dib. Right, Ta'dib comes from the root word of adab, which means to discipline ourselves with good manners. And Said Naqib Al-Atas has mentioned that Ta'dib as a concept of Islamic education, which means in seeking knowledge, it is actually the way for us to recognize the right position, which means that we will recognize Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala as our God, we will realize the purpose of life to worship Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, and we will act accordingly as the Caliph on the earth. And the good knowledge will produce a man with 3 kind of characteristics, which are justice, truth as well as wisdom. And we may want to reflect with the case of Haruko Obokata with the other scientists. Are they the men with the 3 kind of characteristics? And this what difference between the Islamic education and modern science, as well as the believer and the non-believer. Alright, so for the next concept of ihsan is itqan. Itqan mean to do the work diligently with efforts to produce a quality work. And Prophet Muhammad SAW also mentioned that Allah loves those who, when he does the work, he does with itqan. And we can see that in the case of Haruko Obokata, thus they do the work with itqan, meaning full of preparedness and with efforts, as it is mentioned in the slide that Haruko Obokata apologized for the insufficient efforts, ill-preparedness and unskillfulness. And in Islamic education, in Islam, we can see that when someone practicing knowledge and education with ta'dib and do their work with itqan, he or she is actually achieving the al-falah, the successfulness. So for the next part is about Tazkiyatun an-Nafs. Tazkiyatun an-Nafs is actually to purify the soul. Okay, as Allah has mentioned in Surah At-Tahrim verse 6, O you who believe, save yourself and your family from the hellfire. And in seeking the knowledge, one must always purify the soul according to the revelation of Quran and Sunnah, so that the knowledge obtained by us, should always be accordingly to the Sharia laws. And education is actually has the purpose to direct the morality of someone and to purify the soul. If someone did not accept the change, then the fatwa, the advice and the education are actually empty.
In seeking knowledge, the moral dimensions stated by Islamic scholars shall be emphasized. This includes the implementation of Saft SAFT as shown by our Prophet Muhammad SAW in seeking the knowledge, for example, which are Siddiq, truthful, Amanah, trustful, Tabligh, spreading faith or advocacy, and also Fatana, wisdom. For Siddiq, as Allah says, be with the truthful in Surah Al-Tawbah, ayah 119. Be true to yourself and others while looking to become a successful person. The second one is Amanah, trustful. Having a self-sense of responsibility, one should not disrespect or harm others by afflicting people with false knowledge or research. Fatana, wisdom, being knowledgeable and intelligent would enable the person to understand the added value in decision making, avoid risky actions that could harm self and also others. For the last one, Tabligh, advocacy, for example, properly conveying research findings. As we are talking within the scope of Islam, shall we perceive the ethical aspects with religion? Should ethics be brought in together with religion? What about the atheists who can be assumed to be related with this case? So the ethical aspect is not confined to religion, nor religion is confined to ethics. Atheists can be ethical without connecting themselves to the religion. But in this case, what pushes the scientists to be unethical? Do they not understand the importance of being ethical? And do they not know the impacts implied on others when they are being unethical? So the endless grey area and non-clear-cut made for every ethical theory, including relativism, utilitarianism, and others, are not a good fit. So the ethics in Islam is comprehensive, which covers all aspects of life, and also including the secular aspects of individuality, intellectuality, and also emotions. Islam provides guidance for Muslims in every situation. As a Muslim, while we touch on this case, shall we ponder and ask ourselves, how do we see this case? It is best for us to follow the teachings of Islam as it covers the full aspects of life in this world. In terms of Sunnah, the detailed practicality of ethics is embodied in Prophet's actions and behaviors. Indeed, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ explained the purpose of his mission. He said, "I was sent only to perfect the moral excellence of human beings." Thus, to know how ethics should be applied, Muslims need to look no further than to our Prophet ﷺ himself.
Should research misconduct be criminalized? Research misconduct problem is still growing due to increased number of scientists and also the pressure for them to publish. Some said that criminalize the research misconduct can improve research integrity. According to Dalred et al., determining whether research misconduct is subject to criminal is depend on its definition. Many countries agree that research misconduct is defined as falsification, fabrication, and also plagiarism. However, variation of definition of research misconduct lead to problems for promoting integrity in international research. Hence, to promote integrity in international research collaborations, countries should seek to harmonize and clarify misconduct definitions and develop procedures for adjudicating conflicts when harmonization does not occur. According to Resnick et al., half of the countries surveyed already have a national research misconduct policy. This finding indicates to us that most national governments are taking research misconduct seriously and are attempting to promote research integrity. In Malaysia, implementation of Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research (MCRCR) that is endorsed by the National Science Council in 2017 is used as a national code of ethics in research. It is developed with representatives from public and private universities, research institutes, agencies, and ministries to ensure a well-rounded code of ethics. The objectives of this implementation is to ensure that research in Malaysia is pursued earnestly and honestly with integrity and accountability. It is also to enhance science governance in Malaysia and promote efficient implementation of policies and strategies through transparency and accountability in research and development. It is also to provide guidelines for the management of breaches of the codes. Meanwhile, in Japan, due to the highly competitive over the past decade, incidence of research misconduct is increasing. In the wake of the Obokata research scandal in 2014, implementation of revised version of guideline for responding to misconduct in research that is endorsed by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, (MAX) in 2014. The guidelines deal with misconduct in grant and fund usage. The objective of the guideline is to implement necessary measures as responses by research institutes and universities. The structure of report are as the following.
Reflection as a future biomedical scientist. Honesty. Strive for honesty in all scientific communication, including reporting data, result, method and procedure, and publication status. Integrity. Act with sincerity. Strive for consistency of thought and action. Carefulness. Avoid careless error and negligence. Respect mentoring. Help to educate, mentor and advance new trainees. Respect for colleagues. Non-discrimination against colleagues on the basis of sex, race and ethnicity. Legally, obey relevant law and institutional and governmental policy. Integrity from Islamic perspective. Integrity means the quality of being honest and have a strong moral principle, or the quality of being honest and upright. Integrity is one of the moral quality of human that needs in everyday life, particularly by Muslim individual. It also refers to ethics, a principle that must be followed. A person tries to avoid something that could truthfulness and cause him or her to be considered as an individual without integrity. The characteristic of a person without integrity, like deceptions, treacheries, and corruption could be avoided if someone adopts him or herself an element of integrity, such as al-Siddiq. Based on prophetic tradition described by Al-Ghazali, truthfulness leads to righteousness, and telling lies leads to immorality, and immorality leads to hellfire. Al-Siddiq have a six type. It consists of intent and will, determination and its fulfillments, balance and preference between spiritual and physical practice and religions. By learning this element, it helps Muslim individuals to not commit fraud and prevent them from going against the quality of integrity. Recommendation. First, education in research ethics. It can help people to get a better understanding of ethics standards, policy, improve ethical judgment and decision making. Next, research training in scientific practice and the ethical conduct of science should begin early in the training of future scientists and continue through the most senior career stage. Third, ensuring rigor in research conduct. Notes and checklists of studies should be in detail and recorded by researchers. Last, organize an Office of Research Integrity. Institution must be occupied ORI to respond to allegations of academic research misconduct. As conclusion, in this case, we strongly believe that the main factor pushing scientists to lie are due to the lack of integrity and self-exhaustion. We oppose the action of data fabrication as well as other research misconduct which have led to the misleading of research findings. From Allah and Sunnah we see and learn the importance of individuality, emotionality and the society as a whole, which we all hope and pray for the better understanding in seeking knowledge. In Islam, ulama classify knowledge based on the source of knowledge and channel of knowledge. As Muslims, we accept the revelation wahyu, the Quran and Hadith of the Prophet as the source of knowledge. Modern science is one of our channels in acquiring knowledge. The value system we hold remain unchanged because Allah SWT preserved Islam. However, those who reject revelation and defend fully on modern scientists, like atheists, we have difficulty in seeking and attaining the truth. If we observe the progress according, these people are in desperation that the modern science have now become a worldview and or ideologies. So in the end, it is the worldview that matters. Worldview shape our belief system, faith, our iman. We cannot live without faith because without faith our life is meaningless. From the ayah above, Allah SWT do not accept from any religion except Islam, and Islam here includes faith because what is meant by Islam is justification, words and deeds. And with that understanding, may Allah guide us from not committing such life as becoming future biomedical scientists.